Okay, welcome to the last part of this series on Helicobacter pylori. This is part 5, and this is about treatment. Let's start at the top of the list, just work our way down as quickly as we can. Start out with some general comments on antibiotic therapies. The first thing really is that currently, there is no one treatment that is 100% effective. Pylori is fortunately sensitive to a large number of antibiotics. However, the use of a single drug is largely ineffective. This is partly because of the acidic environment of the stomach, which can inactivate or interfere with the action of many antibiotics. And it's also due to the residence of the pathogen in the mucus layer, which is pretty impermeable to a number of drugs. So successful therapy usually involves treatment with 2 to 4 drugs, and to be considered clinically useful, a drug or combination of drugs must eliminate the pathogen in about 80 to 90% of cases where individuals are treated with combination therapy. So that's the first general point here about antibiotics. Point number 2, bismuth triple therapy. The traditional treatment for pylori in the US that's approved by the FDA was originally bismuth, which is something like Pepto-Bismol, if you're familiar with that yellow, that pink muck that you get given if you've got an upset tummy, in combination with tetracycline and metronidazole for a period of 14 days. There are variations on this, but none are considered as effective as this original bismuth triple therapy. The original treatment has an eradication rate of about 75 to 82%. Up to half of the patients can experience some side effects, but only a very small fraction of those actually have to discontinue the therapy. So then point 3 here, quadruple therapy. Quadruple obviously means four parts, and that involves triple therapy, so what we just talked about, with an additional drug which can act as a proton pump inhibitor, which can interfere with bacterial growth. Number 4, resistance. There are instances of resistance to metronidazole and the macrolide drugs, that's things like tetracycline, and then that means that novel, more expensive drugs have to be used, such as furazolidone. So metronidazole resistance is at about 40 to 60% frequency right now, and then clarithromycin, which is another macrolide, is resistant at about 5 to 8%. There is some resistance to amoxicillin, which can be used in place of tetracycline. That's less effective, and unfortunately resistance hasn't been encountered. This is obviously could change, may have changed in the last year or so, but at the time of me taking these notes there was no resistance to amoxicillin. Okay, number 5, regime compliance. This is probably the greatest single factor that affects therapy failure. This is just people failing to take their course of drugs. It's been reported that when patients follow 60% or greater of their regime, you can see up to a 96% eradication rate. And as the compliance rate drops below 60%, the treatment rate drops significantly all the way down to somewhere around 70%. So in terms of treatment failure, number 6 here, now treatment fails, resistance is a concern. And the difficulty in culturing the organism that we talked about earlier when we talked about the basic physiology makes sensitivity testing difficult, and so it's difficult to determine which drugs are effective. It makes it difficult, it makes it expensive, and so that's not routinely performed. There are a number of drug combinations that are known to be that should be avoided. So things like the use of clarithromycin and metronidazole in the first regime should be avoided, because if that fails, then you're kind of out of options. So there are guidelines to what treatment should be given as first line, second line, third line in the event that treatment fails. Last point here: topical therapies. Topical obviously just means direct application. So you can directly add the drug to the stomach mucosa via endoscope, and so you're actually applying antibiotics and to the stomach epithelia using an endoscope. That's good, obviously, because you can get very high concentrations of drug being delivered. if the pathogen is penetrated and is deep, then the drug can exit the stomach and obviously travel to other parts of the body through the vasculature. So even though you're doing a topical administration, it can end up being systemic. Treatment with that takes less time. There are fewer side effects. It's as efficacious, it's as effective as other treatments, but obviously it's somewhat invasive. You have to have an endoscopy procedure, which, if you've ever had that, isn't particularly pleasant. Okay, so there are just 7 quick points about the treatment of Helicobacter pylori infections, and that brings us to the end of part 5 and the end of our series on the bacterium Helicobacter pylori and the diseases it causes, along with some diagnosis, epidemiology, and treatment options.